All right, Rob, look, the odds now. Brock Purdy, after what he did against the Philadephia Eagles, and it was pretty impressive. He had 4 touchdowns, clean game, no interceptions, threw for 314 yards, and had a passer rating of 148, I believe it was. 148.3. He is now surged to the forefront of the MVP race.
I thought it was Dak last week. That changed quickly.
Was Dak? Rob, he was number 2, I think,
but
right?
people were saying
Jalen Hurts was number 1.
Jalen Hurts was
Jalen
number
Hurts,
1.
man.
Dak had
was
surged
2.
to number 2.
Right. So Dak's still number 2, tied with Jalen Hurts. Tua number 4. I think Lamar is 5 and Mahomes is 6. And I'll say this, Rob, about Purdy. Look, if this wants to be a year where, like, Tyreek Hill was phenomenal yesterday and is on pace, and he was before yesterday, but he's on pace to become the first 2,000-yard receiver in NFL history. And particularly if he does it in 16 games. If he has a few more games like yesterday. Now, he's had some where he wasn't fantastic, but so have all the quarterbacks. But if he were to keep playing this well and break that record as far as 2,000 yards and get the 17 touchdowns or so that he's on pace for, I wouldn't be mad if they gave him the MVP. But right now, and I'm glad we've got weeks to play. Dallas has some big games. Philadelphia has some big games. San Francisco, obviously. Everybody's still got games to play. So these quarterbacks have time to divvy it out and figure out who's going to be the MVP. But if it's a quarterback, like it obviously has become essentially a quarterback award. And if that's the case, Rob, I have trouble finding a quarterback right now. Now, this might be different in 2 weeks, but right now, who's more worthy than Brock Purdy? I just do. Where are you at?
I hear you, but it's so fluid because, Chris.
It's fluid for sure.
It is. Because if he has a bad game, they go like, oh, you remember that 3-game losing streak? And then he just had a bad game or something. And I know the later you get, the more it can hurt you. Would you agree with that? Like if he has a bad game? Because if Dak if Dak wins next week and he has a bad game,
well, it depends on what the other quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like that, but it's not like he's running away with it.
Well,
is my point.
I do.
Is my point.
No, he's not. No, he's definitely not running away with it. Nobody is. And to your point, I do think he has lesser room for error because of his history.
Right.
I don't even know about the 3 games.
Okay.
I mean, just because I can point out games. I mean, Dak was terrible when San Francisco played them. And here's one of the things. Purdy has the numbers. All right, he's first in completion percentage, first in passer rating by 8 points, first in yards per attempt by a yard. The only quarterback in the league averaging 9 yards per attempt. All right, and he's top 10 in yards per game. I mean, his stats are right up there. His stats are, I think, the best in the league. Dak does have 26 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Purdy's got 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But Purdy's got him beaten every other category, essentially. I think yards per game, Dak might have him. But it's close, and I think those two have the best numbers. If some people might want to throw Tua in there, but Tua, here's the let me give you a couple of arguments for Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
One, he has beaten a gauntlet of top teams.
And that works in his favor, right? Big time.
He's beaten Philadelphia.
Because it is who you beat. I think
Seattle.
That figures in.
Jacksonville. And Dallas. And Pittsburgh. And they scored 30 or more points against all of those teams. One of the games he didn't score 30 or more, they scored 27 against Tampa, and he had a perfect passer rating. All right, so that's one. Whereas Tua and Dak have not beaten a team with a winning record. Neither one of them. Now, I'm not saying they beat a good team. Seattle's a pretty good team, but they don't technically have a winning record.
No, they don't. I mean, those are the facts.
Right. Secondly, Rob, head-to-head. When Philadelphia, and Jalen Hurts is a candidate, obviously, played against San Fran, Brock Purdy was better. When Dak Prescott played against San Fran, Brock Purdy was better. And so head-to-head, he's got the statistics, he's got the head-to-head matchups, he's got the better wins. And again, I'm glad it's not going out today. But I just don't know how you would give it to a Dak Prescott or over a Brock Purdy right now.
No, I don't think you would. And you talked about it before. I think we're being the Mr. Irrelevant thing. You just talked about it. Kurt Warner won the MVP, Chris, and he wasn't even drafted.
Even Mr. Irrelevant.
Exactly. So it's not, if you put up now, I don't think Kurt Warner that year, and I remember it, was lights out, Chris. You want to pull up his stats?
He led the league.
It was not even a question that guy was the MVP of the league.
Right.
Like, it wasn't, and nobody said, I'm not voting for that guy because he wasn't even drafted.
Right.
If you play on that level,
well, that's what I'm in.
Right?
It should
be like, and so we've seen it. So if Brock Purdy continues to play, I just don't think that the Mr. Irrelevant thing is going to stop anybody from voting for him. It's only when you have some bad games, Chris, or we know, and that was the 3-game losing streak, and he had a couple of moments where he looked pretty ordinary. I think that's where people could go back to and have a conversation about Mr. Irrelevant, because of that, but not because of he's Mr. Irrelevant with great numbers.
Right.
Okay, it can't be that.
Kurt Warner's numbers.
Yeah, give me two.
His first year as a starter, they went 13-3, won the Super Bowl. 65% completion, 65.1. Purdy's at 70.
Okay.
Right now, and we know now they
it's a little different.
A higher percentage,
and also, Chris, they throw to the backs, shorter passes, check downs at the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely,
it wasn't like that. So
nobody was completing 70% of the passes.
No, because it wasn't like that. You weren't throwing the ball that short of a distance and then having to go guys for a yak and all that.
So he was 65%. Threw for 4. Let's do his yards per game.
Right.
272 per game was his first. Now, he improved on that the next 2 years, but the year he was, essentially a first-time starter, he threw for 272 a game. Purdy right now is throwing for 265 a game.
Okay.
So he's close. He'll throw for 4,300 yards or something.
What about the touchdowns and interceptions, Kurt Warner?
Well, let's go by, touchdowns. Purdy has 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Warner led the league with 41 touchdowns, 13 picks. And Warner had a ridiculous touchdown percentage of 8.2.
That's crazy.
And Purdy's is great at 6.9.
But not 8.2.
And he's leading the league, but that's not 8.2. But they both led the league. Interception percentages, Warner's is slightly higher, 2.6 versus Purdy's 2.5.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Purdy is 1.8. 1.8. And so, and then Purdy's yards per attempt, 9.6. And Warner's was 8.7. Now, and Warner's passer rating, Rob, 109.2, which was a career high for him. Purdy's is 116.1. So the numbers, it's similar. And remember, because a lot of people, and I get it, but a lot of people are saying Purdy's not the best offensive player on this team.
No.
McCaffrey. I think Debo, I used to say a few years ago, Debo's the best football player in the league.
Right.
But with the injury, yesterday was kind of the first time I felt like we saw the old Debo in a while.
He's back.
Yeah, he was awesome. But if you want to say McCaffrey's their best player, well, remember
they got
who
two of them,
Kurt
though,
Warner
right?
had?
Well, Marshall Faulk, who was
better than Warner at that point.
And a versatile player, like a versatile. He could run, he could catch.
Yep.
Like he was a hybrid, Chris.
Yep.
Right back then, he was a talented player.
So I think that's a precedent that you could say, you know what, Kurt Warner did it. Why not Purdy? And I'm open to it. It's still open. I would agree Purdy is not running away with it. But like I said, with who he's beaten, the combination of wins, impressive wins, big time games where he's been incredible. Rob, against Jacksonville, who's 8-3, Dallas, which is 9-3, and Philadelphia, which is 10-2. He's got 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Hard to argue with those numbers, right?
280 yards a game. So, if it's a quarterback award, then it's hard to argue against him right now.
Right now. And we still got, 5 weeks to go.
Yeah. We got a while. So,